Okay, everyone, welcome to February 6th SIG Apps meeting. I'm Janet, and together with me is Maciek, who is also our co-host. I'm going to be your host today, and then we have an announcement and a few discussion topics. And Maciek has posted the link to the agenda in the chat. Um, So your first thing is the announcements on enhancement freeze is this by around the end of this week. So take a look at that link. 127 enhancement freeze is coming. Then the next topic is on a discussion topic about adding Kubernetes prefix labels to batch API. Uh, is anyone here to talk about this
Yeah,
one?
sorry, I forgot to put my name on it. Hey, Janet, it's Kevin. So I just wanted to bring awareness to, I have I decided to take that issue related to adding the prefix labels for the batch APIs for the job name and controller UID. And I have a pull request for that, but it's been kind of difficult to find approvers for some of the code around the package registry batch. And so I was just hoping to maybe bring some awareness to that PR and see. I actually think Aldo just assigned it to him. So this may be not as big a deal, but in general, that was why I added it to the agenda. I was having some trouble getting finding the right people to approve some of the code, especially related to the package registry batch area.
Both the package registry and package API will be approved by the API reviewers because they're touching basically the same. As long as you maintain both, and I remember that while scrolling through the original issue that Tim opened, and he did point it out to have both of the labels set in parallel for a good couple releases and a proper release note and maybe a note in the document that these old labels are being deprecated in favor of the new prefixed ones. It looks reasonable. So I'll try to have a look at the PR. But yeah, for the approvals, like I said, it most likely will be someone from the API team, API machinery team.
And is there sorry, I'm still learning my way around some of this stuff. Is there like a SIG channel I can join to request that? Or actually, I think I saw it, and it might have been a comment in the PR. I'll read that and figure out how to request API reviews.
If I remember correctly, Tim, but not the Tim who reviewed your PR, but rather the one who created the original issue, Tim Hawkin. If I remember correctly, he is also one of the API approvers, so he should be able to tag your PR. And as for channel, there's API reviews, or alternatively, it's like API machinery. Although I'm pretty sure that they would still want to see someone from the SIG API, SIG apps, to leave their mark on the
Okay.
PR.
All right. I guess for documentation, what is that a separate PR as part of like the website, or is that part in the PR?
No, you're correct. That will be the website repository. You want to create their an appropriate PR and find the bits which are talking about those labels. If there is no particular one, I don't remember off the top of my head the current structure. If there's nothing like that currently, I would just put a note somewhere towards the top of this document so that people who are opening this document are at least aware that something like that might be happening. Even
All right.
they don't be, if nobody is relying, which we cannot assume, it would be good to have a section somewhere there about that deprecation and that change.
Okay, all right, well, thank you. And I guess, does this fall under enhancement freeze?
If I may.
Thank you,
Yeah, go ahead.
So regarding the website, you need to open a change, but towards the branch for the next release, which is the 127 release. The reason being that, you know, this is kind of like a new feature, or I mean, you're not gonna backport or anything. So it should go for the next version. So you should open the PR for the branch for the next version of the website. So it's that should be merged only when the release is gonna happen. And in terms of enhancements, this is not an enhancement. This is more of a, I guess, kind of like a bug fix. So you don't need a cap, or it doesn't fit through the enhancements. It doesn't. You don't need to account for the enhancements freeze. Only the code freeze.
Yeah, I was wondering about it earlier today, whether this is worthy at all of a cap, but I'm leaning towards what Aldo said, that this is a bug fix more. As long as we just make sure that people are, we will leave them appropriate time to switch over, even if this is shouldn't be heavily used. We still need to make sure that the overlap is there. The branch that Aldo was talking about for the website is def 1.27. I just double checked.
All right, well, that sounds, that's all very helpful. Thank you, you all.
Regarding deprecation, I feel like the most natural rule to follow is the rule for GA features or GA APIs. This means that for, I think it's either 3 or 4 releases, actually, we might not be able to remove it. I think we'll need to check with Jordan or other API reviewers, but basically, for now, you have to keep supporting both, so both should work.
Yeah.
And eventually, we should remove the old one, but I don't know if we can do that in at least 3 releases or never.
Yeah,
Well,
there's
never,
sort of, yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, never depends on rule 4a, the interpretation of rule 4a for deprecation. So we will have to ask the API reviewers what they think.
So Tim Hawking made a comment in the original issue that this shouldn't be broken. So we need to keep the old behavior. So just mark it deprecated, but don't break existing users. Because it's
Yeah,
a
so
GA API.
yeah, as part of that PR, I guess one reason why I want SIG Apps reviewer, especially for that, is to make sure it wouldn't break anything related to like the selectors and the labels. Because what I noticed is that I think we're using the controller UID in the selector label, and there's really no way to remove that until we can guarantee that everyone has the new label. I think at least there was some requests about upgrade policies that I found very difficult to reproduce. So I kind of went with the policy of selectors will use the old label until we can guarantee that the new label is there among any of the upgrades that we support. So that was at least my thought process. But I would appreciate SIG Apps for pointing that out.
I think implementation wise, you should have a selector for both and somehow merge the list of pods. Or like if there is a way to set a selector with an OR, yeah, that would be the way.
Okay, I'll take a look into that.
Wouldn't it be simpler to just set the new labels for now and leave the selector until 128? In 128, given the supported scoop plus minus one, we would be able to switch the selector to use the new ones. And I have some reservation towards doing an or. Not sure if that will work correctly, or we'll just
So
overcomplicate stuff. But
Sorry
that's
for
probably
running late.
something that we have to double check.
Sorry for running late, but quick question. So we're talking about 113714, the label selectors for jobs. And can we actually, so, okay, the last time we went through this, we had to actually increment the API version in order to change stuff like this, because I mean, it's on a GA API, right? So can we, is there a way to do anything other than just mark them as deprecated? Can we ever remove them in theory based on our own, like?
Probably no.
Okay.
So we would just publish both. Use the new ones, and the old one would be there for eternity, or at least V2 gets introduced.
Yeah, and I think sorry, go on, Aldo.
I think the job controller could eventually migrate to only use the new ones, because these are jobs and they would finish. So eventually, like in 2 or 3 releases, you shouldn't have any jobs that are still running that only have the old labels.
It's not about the job controller, and we could change that. It's about the external consumers, and Tim also pointed out that someone else might be relying on these labels, even though theoretically they will be meant for us to consume by the controller.
It's a point we're talking about, though, like in everything else for workloads that are run forever. Yeah, but I mean, again, you can have an arbitrary downstream dependency that's just doing label. Like I can think of stuff where people are looking at there's a really good blog post about people who were doing batch work at scale, mostly using cron job. They're just doing tons and tons of them. And they developed custom infrastructure in order to track the lifecycle of cron jobs and report telemetry based on completion and all that. And if they're using those labels and we break all their stuff because they disappear, I think it might have been Lyft, but that's not cool.
So I agree that we should keep both. We should keep adding both labels. But what I'm trying to say is that eventually we should be able to only filter in the job controller using the new ones, just as a minor simplification of the code.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, really, yeah.
Yeah, I think in general that was the consensus I sort of came to, was with the selector, was keep setting that, and then eventually once we can guarantee all users have both the new label, then we could eventually switch to using that selector in the job controller. But I think with this round, it's probably publish both and keep using the old selector for this first release so we don't break anything. And then that was at least the consensus. That was I think the general idea that I came to.
Okay, I think we can move on to the next topic. The next one is Philip about informing users about unsupported PDB options.
Yeah.
Is Philip here?
Yeah, hi. So yeah, I would like to talk about this issue and solve it for users who are incorrectly using PDBs, and this has to do with constraints we have regarding setting the max unavailable and min available, and our support, which of these according to which values we set, what pods, like what controllers can these pods be owned by. And we are documenting this as well, but like not all users read the documentation fully, and when this happens, we are not giving any information to the user that they are unmanaged pods, and the only thing we do is having a log which has a level 4, so it's not really visible, like when people use PDBs in an unsupported way. So if we could solve that either by introducing an event or a condition on PDB that would mention that we have unmanaged pods.
What do you expect would happen in those cases? Should that be, I can think of two actors, whether a user who is aware about this problem, would he fix it, or whether he's doing this on purpose, and we should, in parallel, try to inform cluster administrator through some kind of metric that will help him to manage the cluster and, let's say, prepare for another upgrade or node drain or something that basically might stomp his actions or prevent him from continuing node drain because there will be a misconfigured PDB.
So yeah, like I think in some configurations, like the PDB can work for the user. For example, as I said, when you have max unavailable 0, and but for example, for an admin or for some other actors who are reading the status of a PDB, it's like inconsistent, and they are not expecting, for example, the expected pods or the desired healthy is incorrectly set. So even for admins who are observing these values, it's unexpected that they are not like consistent.
This is more like about the usability of the PDBs to help the users know that potentially there's something else that we're picking up or something. Yeah.
I mean, like we are not supporting this use case, but they should be aware that they are using the unsupported use case. So when they have, for example, bare pods and they are using the percentages or the max unavailable 0.
I wonder about a case where this could potentially lead to unwanted data leak. For example, I don't remember how exactly we're looking at the pod under PDB, but is there a potential for PDB to pick a pod that is not owned by the user but that is actually owned by someone else that theoretically the author of the PDB should not see? Because PDB is basically working within a particular namespace, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, this I think it's not more like they shouldn't see it, but I think this could also like detect scenarios when you have when you are selecting some pods through some labels, and then you have additional pods you are not expecting, like interfering with your pods from some other application. So this could handle this case as well. So it would also inform the users who use the PDBs properly, but they will have like other pods that should not belong there.
So I think we do actually emit an error, an event in this case already. If you have a pod that doesn't match a controller, when it tries to get the controller, that generates an error, which gets filtered back out to get expected pod count, which gets wrapped in an event and published. So was a particular thing you were proposing to emit an event, or to, like, what behavior were you asking? What would you see the system doing in this case other than what it does right now?
I think what Philip is asking for is the status shows the disruption is allowed or not. Whereas in the documentation, we say that for max unavailable, we say that it should not be used. So that is the change I think Philip is asking for, right, Philip? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm not sure about how we process the errors, or if there are some other events, but yeah, like in normal case, you can have pods which do not have any controller, like when you send available to like any value, right, or to an integer.
The line 10 that you pointed out is only emitting a warning when we fail to calculate the pods, which are expected count, desired healthy and unmanaged pods. The next check after the one that you pointed out is checking whether there are unmanaged pods, which is pods that are not under any controller. Yeah, and then we only do an info at a v4, which literally means a lot of that information is even hidden, because majority of the controllers are running by default with v2, if I remember correctly. So if I understand correctly, Philip wants to put a similar warning like the one above also for this case, so that users know that, oh, there's also this one or two other pods which we are taking under this PDB, which might be actually problematic for you in the long run, because you think that your app is properly managed by the PDB, but it is not, because someone or some other pod is interfering.
Okay, that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, and I think even updating the status also seems reasonable, right? So in such like the PDBs associated with such pods, they can have a status that it's not supported, but you're having an sort of unsupported configuration instead of emitting an event. I think either of those things are reasonable, right?
Yeah, regarding the solution for the condition, I think that this probably should require a cap to see how it should be defined. So
I'm not sure if you need a cap. I would just put a warning on a PDB, just like the one couple of lines before.
Yeah.
You link the 709. If you look at line 704, I would just put a warning event. There's no cap required for this kind of addition.
Right. I mean, this doesn't like change the API in any way. It doesn't modify the behavior. If you want to write a cap, no one's going to stop you. But
no, I meant like yeah, I guess the event is probably the most like best and pragmatic solution. I was just mentioning if we wanted to introduce a condition that then it could require a cap. Like if there were some like consumers who would like to know that the PDBs are misbehaving, I would like to read it on API level.
So do you want to introduce a condition? Because that would probably,
It's an option. I'm not saying I want to introduce it. I think event is enough.
so conditions are weird. I don't like, yeah, you probably would want to do a cap if you want to introduce it, just, but like, they don't benefit from the same level of stability as the rest of the API by design, right? Like they say you can like do not depend on conditions is called out, or build state machines on conditions is kind of called out broadly, right? So we can add and remove those in ways that are, so like, yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to the condition either personally, with other people like the idea.
I would probably just go with it. With an event, we've been pretty consistently using the warning level events across several controllers for notifying users that either there is a misconfiguration in their resource, or a controller is misbehaving because something else is causing issues. So I'm not sure if a condition is required for this particular case. And like with all the other stuff, it's easily readable from the API.
Okay, yeah, the event sounds good for this.
Yeah, I also think that events is enough for this use case. Okay, our last topic is Rahul. Is it how I pronounce your name?
Yeah.
Do we have? Okay. Do you want?
So it looks good to me from that. I just need an approver. The comment suggested Macy, but if I'm not sure who wants to look at that.
So this one is about recreating PVC when stateful set and pod is stuck and pending.
Yeah.
Okay. I think someone can take a look. Does it require a cap? Is it just a bug fix?
It was a bug.
Okay.
Isn't it the topic that we discussed a couple months back, if I remember correctly?
Yeah.
Ken had an initial stab at looking at your PR, or it's a different one?
This was the one, yeah.
Okay. Ken, will you be able to have another go at the PR?
Yeah, sure. I thought it was actually. Okay, yeah, I can approve.
All right, thanks.
I didn't think you needed me to approve it. I gave a review. You have LGTM. You just needed an approve.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, thanks.
Sounds good. Is there anything that anyone wants to discuss? If not, we can end the discussion, the meeting today early. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.